Good evening and welcome to the Ogden City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 25th, 2013. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. We'll now turn the time over to Vice Chair Garner for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We'd like to welcome Jackson Hyde from Troop 174. He's going to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So it's a pleasure to have your troop here. If you'll come up here. Come right up here in front by the mic. There you go, Jackson.
Audience, please rise. Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackson, stay there for a minute, bud. We're going to ask all the rest of your troop to come up with you. And we're going to ask each of you just to tell us your name and what merit badge you're working on. No, turn around and look at us, guys.
Yeah.
There you go. Speak into the mic.
I'm Sam Lewis, and I'm working on my citizenship in the community merit badge.
I'm Alex Lewis, and I'm working on the citizenship in the community merit badge.
I'm Freen Geiger, and I'm from Troop 174, and I'm working on the citizenship in the community merit badge.
I'm Jackson Hyde, and I'm working on the citizenship in the community merit badge.
Do we have other boys that are working on merit badges? Come up, boys. Just tell us your troop and your name and what merit badge you're working on.
Emmanuel Ochoa, working Troop 85, working on communications and citizenship in the community.
Braulio Barajas, I'm working on communications and citizenship in the nation.
Andy Flores, working on communications. Diego Fuentes, I'm working on the same thing as them.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you being here tonight and recognize your leaders for being here. And I hope we got more boys came in on the back row.
Must be time to get it done.
I'm Brandon, and I'm working on my citizenship, community, sorry.
I'm Neil Dunn, and I'm working with citizenship in the community.
I'm Gary Justice, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
Thanks, guys. And again, thanks to your leaders for bringing you here, and I hope you have a good time tonight and learn a few things. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all the scouts for being here tonight. We'll now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Next is a request to be on the agenda, and we have Carolyn Brierly.
Good evening, Mayor, Mark, members of the council, legal. I'm here to talk to you about the marathon. In 2000, former Mayor Matthew Godfrey presented me with a challenge: create a marathon for Ogden. $5,000 had been allocated in the budget. We contracted with Rocky Mountain Sports Alliance to produce the very first marathon in 2001. There were 620 runners in all races, which included a relay and a full marathon. Ogden City owns the marathon, but we contracted out. We contracted with Rocky Mountain Sports Alliance for the first 5 years. In 2006, the Goal Foundation was awarded the contract. They have been producing and improving the event ever since. Of course, Ogden City is still very heavily involved, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about that involvement. Of course, you know law enforcement is involved. We couldn't have the marathon without our law enforcement, UHP, and the Weber County Sheriff, and of course our EMS services. But a few other contract things that I'd like to tell you about that you're probably not aware of. The contract that we have with the Goal Foundation is for $7,500. In that contract, we require $1 back for each registered runner, never thinking that we would ever exceed that $7,500. However, this year, the return on that was $9,238. There is a new state law that private entities can no longer rent school buses. There was a little issue with school buses being used by everyone and school districts paying, the fees. So Weber County School District, we finally contracted with them to get buses from Weber School District. Ogden City School buses are run by a private contractor, so we could already get them, but we couldn't grow the race without the additional buses from Weber School District. But in order to do that, the contract had to be with a government entity. So Ogden City contracts with the Weber School District. I believe we got 77 buses this year. We rent the buses. We have to hire all the drivers. So we do that through a temporary agency so that we can provide workman's comp. We have to provide an auto liability insurance policy. And then we have to pay mileage on the buses. So that fee this year was $21,000, just a little bit over $21,000 to rent those buses from the school district. We also have a cost recovery program for some of the services that we have that we partner with the Goal Foundation. The cost recovery that we have is for firewood, the banner installation, radio rental, van rental, and the trash cans. And we have an administrative order in place that we can charge fees for that. So our total amount that we spent on the actual marathon was $32,500 that was reimbursed to the city from the Goal Foundation. So at this time, I would like to introduce Jenny Scothern. She's the Executive Director of the Goal Foundation, and she's going to tell you all the fun facts. Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for having me. On behalf of myself and the Board of Directors of the Goal Foundation, I'd like to thank you for taking time for a 2013 marathon recap. I would like to recognize Kevin Burns. He is the chair of the Goal Foundation, and Carolyn Brierly is also on our Board of Directors, so I appreciate them joining us tonight. I want to start by just sharing our current vision and mission statement. Our vision is that we envision a greater Ogden community that thrives economically and is healthier in mind, body, and spirit. Our mission is to inspire the greater Ogden community and its visitors to get out and live by participating, volunteering, and spectating at recreational events, programs, and activities. And we have a big set of core values that we live by our mission with, and I want to highlight a few. We value the dedication and enthusiasm of the volunteers that help us achieve our mission and host world-class events. We believe that everyone deserves an opportunity to get out, get active, and get involved, and we are dedicated to the people of Ogden. I'd like to show a brief video that we produced this year. It went out to all of our runners and their spectators with a program we included to our runners as part of their registration that was called Race My Race, and it just gives a great overview of our event. So Amy's going to help me. Thank you.
The Goal Foundation welcomes you to the Zions Bank Ogden Marathon. This scenic Boston qualifying course has been named by Runner's World magazine as one of the top 10 marathons in the United States for first-time marathoners. Racers board buses in downtown Ogden during the pre-dawn hours and are shuttled to the start line, 26 miles east of town, where burning fires keep arriving runners warm until the race start. The course begins in the heart of the Wasatch Cache National Forest, and runners will pass several Forest Service campgrounds in the early part of the race as the course follows the South Fork of the Ogden River. Throughout the Ogden Marathon's history, this winding course has hosted runners from all 50 states and 7 foreign countries. While runner demand for race entry could make the Ogden Marathon a much larger race, the logistics of shuttling racers to the start line, then clearing the course, keeps it the more intimate race it has become known for. Additionally, road closures of canyon roads that provide the only access to the residents of the communities you'll run through pose a challenge. Ogden Marathon organizers are grateful to the Utah Department of Transportation and the citizens of these beautiful mountain communities for their cooperation on race day. Please show them your appreciation and respect as well. At around the 5-mile mark, runners emerge from the canyon carved by the South Fork of the Ogden River and enter scenic Ogden Valley and the community of Huntsville. Nestled between ranges of the Wasatch Mountains, this valley is a mixture of farming and outdoor recreation. If you missed the turn at State Road 166, it's a short jaunt over to the oldest saloon in Utah, the Shooting Star. From here, your course runs along the shores of Pine View Reservoir and several aid stations awaiting your arrival. Thousands of hours of volunteer time go into the Ogden Marathon, and this is a great chance to start thanking some of those selfless volunteers. You'll likely be cheered on by occasional residents of Ogden Valley. Again, thank them for opening their beautiful community to this memorable race as you run past. As you approach the town of Eden, you are nearing the halfway point of the Ogden Marathon. As you pass the half marathon start, you'll likely encounter several more spectators who have made the trek over North Ogden Divide to cheer you on. The city park here in Eden is where the half marathoners stage for the race while you are up at the canyon. Half marathon organizers keep music pumping and the energy high to push you through the second half of your race. As you leave Eden and begin to skirt the western shores of Pineview, you'll encounter the only significant uphill section of the course. Not to worry, more aid stations await you at the top. At this point, you'll finish your circumnavigation of Pineview and cross the dam and enter the stunningly beautiful Ogden Canyon Scenic Byway. Due to strict requirements with our canyon closure, there's a hard cutoff time applied to this portion of the course. Any runner who has not crossed the dam by 11:30 a.m. will be pulled from the course and driven down the canyon. This iconic section of the course through Ogden Canyon is what most people identify with the Ogden Marathon. The steep and lush canyon walls provide shade, and the Ogden River runs alongside you for the next several miles. As you reach the mouth of the canyon, a waterfall on your right bids you welcome to the city of Ogden. Your path will keep you mostly in the shade of the Ogden River Parkway as it winds past Ogden's Dinosaur Park and several other parks and gardens. Ultimately, you will emerge from the Ogden River Parkway and find yourself on the home stretch of the race as it runs down Grant Avenue, where throngs of cheering spectators and live music will bring you home. The Goal Foundation's youth programs run a special Kids K race on this portion of the course to give young runners a chance to experience what it feels like to cross a marathon finish line. You may encounter some of these young runners, and we hope you'll encourage them, as they'll surely encourage and motivate you. The Ogden Marathon ultimately ends in the heart of Ogden's historic 25th Street, where you'll find plenty of recovery food and drink, a foot clinic, our medical headquarters, massage tables, and an easy reunion with your family and friends. Please enjoy your experience with the Ogden Marathon.
Those pictures taken this year, Jenny?
They look bright.
Easy.
Yeah.
No, not this year. So, as the headline says, thank you, Ogden Marathon 2013, probably one of the most rewarding community-connected races we have ever produced, but also the most challenging race to date due to the Boston Marathon bombings, construction in the canyon, and the rain, which wasn't shown in that video. I put a few of the newspaper headlines that we collected throughout this race. We had quite a bit of good media coverage. And my favorite, we finally got a good front page, undampened enthusiasm the day after the race. Because of the lottery, we were able to see how many runners wanted to get into the race. So this year we increased our runner field by 1,300 runners. The bulk of the increase was to allow more Weber County residents into our race. And this was our largest field to date, even in the rain. That's from this year. With the Boston bombing and the canyon closure, a very concerted effort and deep collaboration between the entities that you see on the screen took place. Everyone took the safety of the runners, the volunteers, and the spectators very seriously, and the support and communication we received was amazing. And I would like to personally thank the Mayor's Office, Lieutenant Cottrell, Cameron Stiver with the OPD, Chief Matthew, Eric Bauman, Ryan Perkins, Casey Wetstein, as well as Jay Lauder, Justin Anderson, Perry Huffaker, and Carolyn Brierly with the city. Along with that, Weber County, the Sheriff's Office, Terry Thompson, and Lieutenant Kevin Burns, who is also on my board, and Lance Peterson gave us tremendous support. This is by no means a complete list, but it's the people that gathered in the room with us to help plan out and map out what we were going to do to provide a safe event and to have a very well-organized event. So it was really overwhelming, the support that they gave us, and the Ogden City team came up with solutions, and they were amazing to brainstorm with. Not to mention the medical support we received from our official medical sponsor, Intermountain McCady Sports Medicine. They give us just amazing support. A couple of things that happened behind the scenes of the race, some of the problems that we were solving. We had incredible support. We had bomb squads come out with bomb dogs, and they were very well received by the community. But before the race started, and after we already got the buses off and loaded up the canyon, I got a call from command post and said, "Jenny, there's a dog that has smelled something in an unattended, unmarked vehicle. And it's locked. This race won't start until we figure out what's going on." So they cut the lock. The buses are up. I'm thinking, oh, great, the buses are gone. Yeah, let's see what this is. And it was glycerin that could be used to make bombs, but it was massage oil. Glycerin-based massage oil is part of one of our vendors. So the race went on. Shortly after the race started, I got a call from command post, "Jenny, there's possible rock slides in the canyon. Could be a canyon closure situation." So my team called backup buses. We had buses on call in case of evacuation. And then the Ogden City team immediately had spotters in the canyon monitoring the situation. So the race went on. We also collaborate with Ogden Weber Convention and Visitors Bureau, and of course Weber County, the Commission Office, Sheriff, and Utah Highway Patrol. And because the race went on, we're grateful for the amazing volunteers that support our events because they showed up in the pouring rain. Did I mention it rained? We couldn't possibly do it without them. The volunteers support our runners, filling 170,000 cups on the course of almost 7,000 gallons of water. Only some of it rained this year. 2,000 gallons of Powerade. They hand out 10,000 Cliff Bars, 12,000 Cliff Shots, and help pick up over 3,000 pounds of clothes that get dropped on our course. Big Brother and Big Sister donates and weighs it. 1,100 volunteers gave over almost 69,000 hours of volunteer support. That's leading up to the race and on Expo and race day. And then some of the highlights from our post-race survey, of course, our runners always love our aid station support, the volunteer support, quality of the finisher medals. This is on a scale of 1 to 5, race day transportation, and overall organization of the race, even in the rain. This year, our team made an effort to have more visibility within the community prior to race day. We wanted to help sponsors activate their sponsorship. As a result, 350 of our local sponsors, hotels, and businesses wore special edition Ogden Marathon shirts leading up to the race on race week. So Zions Bank tellers, hotels, various businesses purchased at cost our community shirts. We also had our guest of honor, Olympian and author Jeff Galloway. Wednesday before the race, we did a free breakfast with Jeff Galloway to 225 Ogden City and Weber County School District administrators, teachers, PE coordinators, students, to speak about physical fitness and academic performance. And then the Goal Foundation also donated his book, Fit Kids, Smarter Kids, to the attendees, and that was a tie-in to our Young Runners program. In addition, this year we added 33 street banners on 25th Street in Washington. We'll continue to add to that. We also provided all of the area hotels with banners welcoming the runners. And then we did do 5,000 Boston Tribute ribbons to the first runners that picked up at Packet Pickup. All of this came to an estimated $1.6 million in estimated economic impact to the Ogden area. We had a media and PR value of approximately $179,000. I did include a breakdown for Bill Cook, the executive director, because it's so long, but if you guys would like to review it, I'll leave a copy with him. of that value to promote Ogden. This year, we also continued with our Young Runners program. We visited 11 after-school programs 3 times with an army of volunteers, mostly corporate sponsors from Zions Bank, Granite Construction, and Intermountain McCady Health. 600 school-aged children participated and are eligible to earn their entry into the Kids Care 5K. The sun finally came out at the start of that race, and we had about 600 kids participate in the Kids K. 250 were from our after-school program. This year, we also raised funds for our Young Runners program with the help of Granite Construction and a campaign hosted by Community Foundation of Utah called the Love Give Utah campaign, and we raised approximately $8,000 additional funds this year for our program. One of the new things we did in 2013 is we hired a community outreach coordinator. Some of you may know her as CT Carla Taylor. She was the Weber State women's basketball coach for 25 years. She's helping to grow our Young Runners program and to help launch our Get Out and Live summer camps. This year, those are kids at a mountain bike camp off their bikes, practicing their downhill attack position. I participated in that camp, and that position does help, so I'm living proof. But the kids had an amazing time, and we touched a lot of youth in our community. I also wanted to give you a summary of 2012, even though this is a 2013 marathon recap, and in the documents I handed out, I actually included our 2012 annual report. But in 2012, the Goal Foundation produced the Ogden Marathon, Hurt in the Dirt, which is an off-road duathlon, Dirt in the Dark, and Skirt in the Dirt, which occur at Fort Buenaventura. We also provided volunteer support to the Winter Dew Tour National Championships, the USA National Collegiate Cycling Championships, the Larry H. Miller Tour of Utah, the Xterra USA Championships, and the Xterra National Trail Run. This equated to 1,000 volunteers giving 15,000 hours of service, 12,000 athletes from our community and around the world participated, 40,000 spectators, and an estimated $7,500,000 estimated economic impact to the Ogden area. And at the end of the day, the thing that keeps us doing what we do is the chance to inspire all people in the greater Ogden area to get out and live. So thank you for your time, and I've provided the annual report for you and also a 2013 marathon program for your review, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I thought the marathon was fabulous.
It was very rainy. It was a difficult
Very
one.
wet, but very fabulous.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It wasn't too hot.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here.
Chair, I'd like to thank the Gold Foundation for their effort on this and bringing this great event into Ogden, but also Carolyn for her help and assistance in here. When I was involved with the Ogden Pioneer Days, Carolyn was the first one that I went to get the instructions, and I appreciate her mentor in that aspect there.
Thank you. Okay. Next up is approval of minutes. First, the closed executive session of September 18th, 2012, and the work session of September 25th, 2012. Councilmember Wicks.
Thank you, Chair Blair. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be correct.
And the minutes of the work session of October 16th, 2012, the study session and work session of December 4th, 2012, and the work session of February 12th, 2013. Councilmember Van Hoosier.
I have reviewed these minutes and they are correct.
And the minutes of the work session of February 19th, 2013, the regular meeting of February 26th, 2013, and the study session of March 5th, 2013. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, thank you, Chair Blair. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate, and with that would make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Heyer to approve the minutes and a second from Councilmember Wicks. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Next, we'll have a public hearing on the budget amendment, proposed ordinance 2013-27. Who's presenting? It's Johnson.
Good evening. This is a regular end of the year budget opening, as you've been aware of in the past years. And the purpose of this action is to recognize any additional revenue from grants, donations, et cetera, not previously included in the fiscal year 2012-2013 budget, and as well as make appropriation suggestions for the additional funds. The impact to the budget by this budget opening is $2,082,114. And just to clarify that over half of this is related to grants in one fashion or other. Are there any questions specifically?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will now accept public input on proposed ordinance 2013-27.
Seeing no movement, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Councilmember Van Hoosier. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any further discussion?
If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-27.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance. We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-27 by Councilmember Gochner and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye, that passes. Next are reports from the Planning Commission. First are the temporary and banner signage in the mixed-use zone. Mr. Montgomery.
Mr. Chair and council members, the Planning Commission has forwarded to you a recommendation regarding revisions to the MU ordinance. This came about because of the provisions that had been reviewed by you earlier on regarding banner signs. As the council approved the banner sign ordinance, one of the things that we did not approve at that point was the mixed-use ordinance. It has its own set of standards, and while discussion took place about banner signs also being appropriate in those locations, a separate ordinance had to be created for that consideration. So the Planning Commission reviewed that consideration of a separate ordinance for the mixed-use zone, and have suggested or recommended to you approval of that. Now, the specifics of the ordinance deal with three types of banner signs, basically. One is A-frame signage. The recommendation to you is that A-frame signs could be an appropriate use along the river frontage or along Park Boulevard where there may be commercial activity, as long as it is on private property, not in the public right-of-way in terms of the parkway. And so it had to be kept back onto private property. But A-frame signs would be very appropriate as a way to get a message out of a business that may be located along that river frontage to those people who are all along the river. We also added it to Park Boulevard because of potential commercial activities that can happen along Park Boulevard, and much like on 25th Street, where we have A-frame signs to, again, attract the pedestrians, this would allow that to occur there. Now, the way the ordinance is written, it's such that it applies only to an MU zone that has certain criteria. So this case right now, we're applying it only to the river project. If another MU zone is created somewhere else, it would have to take a look and say, are these appropriate for that location? So these are area-specific standards of what type of signs would be allowed. The other type of sign that would be allowed in the ordinance is a perpendicular banner sign to the building. And this, in the ordinance, is limited to then a commercial type building, whether it be a commercial building, a mixed-use building, or a live-work building. Those are the only three buildings that could take advantage of that type of banner sign, again, because it's advertising, the ability to advertise a business that's there. And what we're finding is that those types of banner signs create a lot more color and activity, a feeling of festivity, and so that's the reason why we felt it would be appropriate to be included in the MU zone. The last type of sign that's proposed to you, that's again a banner type sign, would be on light poles. So if there are small parking areas, again, that could set the theme of what's the community's name, or if it's in a commercial parking area. For example, if you look around where Gear 30 is and Striders and other development that could happen there, that they could actually put banner signs in their parking lot on the poles, light poles, to again create some color and activity feeling for that area. Those are the three specific changes that are being proposed in this ordinance that would apply to the mixed-use zone. There's a unanimous recommendation by the Planning Commission. Any questions you may have of me?
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now receive public input on proposed ordinance 2013-33, temporary and banner signage in the mixed-use zone.
Mr. Chair, seeing no movement, I would make a motion that we approve proposed ordinance 2013-33.
I second it.
We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-33 from Councilmember Heyer and a second from Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier.
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks.
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gardner.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Next is the South River Mixed Use Zone text amendment. Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I'll introduce this to start with, and then I'm going to have Mr. Anderson talk about the first phase, if you will, of this ordinance and why it's before you tonight. As you're aware, South River has been working on their townhomes, and they have brought in their second phase of development. And we'll see if, give it time to. So they brought in their second phase of development, which was consistent with the overall plan. And as it was routed around the staff, there were comments made about 20th Street and the need to do some other work on 20th Street than what had originally been talked about when the plan was first developed. So I want Mr. Anderson to talk about that 20th Street work, because that is a key discussion to lead why this petition then came to us.
Engineering, with looking at the development that was taking place, we also started looking at the Wasatch Front 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. In that plan, it lists 20th Street from Washington Boulevard going west past Wall Avenue as a Phase 1 project. Phase 1 meaning a project that is recommended on being improved between 2010 and 2020. With the population increase in Utah that's through the governor's office, it's projected of increasing from 2.5 million to over 5 million individuals, 2/3 of those being our children and grandchildren within that time period. We looked at the average annual daily traffic on 20th Street, which is right now around 9,200. With the increased growth that is taking place, and the street already being categorized as a minor arterial, which is just a step above a collector, we've seen problems with the street, particularly at Wall Avenue. If you're looking westbound during our PM peaks, the queuing lengths from Wall Avenue will extend at times all the way past Lincoln and clog that intersection. So we've seen an issue there. Some of these issues have to do with the street not having improvements for many, many years. It's deficient in curb and gutter and sidewalk. And right now we have the opportunity, we have multiple sections of this roadway being developed. On Wall Avenue, from Wall to Lincoln on the south side, we have the Juvenile Justice Court being developed. On Washington Boulevard between to Grand Avenue on the north side, we have all the townhomes being built, as well as the corner on the north side with America First looking to come in. And we also have the south side, though there's nobody right now looking to develop, the potential is there. We've also had the north side of the street in between Grant and Lincoln is looking to be developed in the future. And so the thought is If we don't get the improvements done correctly this first time, there's going to be backlash in the fact that then when the traffic comes, when we start including, again, all the developments I've talked about, also the Da Vinci Academy, which has increased its student body in recent years, and the traffic that that brings to the area, we're going to have a clog of the entire 20th Street section. And so we've looked at trying to remediate those problems. And by doing that, we've looked to add a center turn lane and also increasing the widths, particularly right at the intersections. We have problems at Wall Avenue and at Grant, both going westbound. And so we're looking to include right-hand turn lanes and through lanes at those locations. We have worked with Community and Economic Development in requesting a traffic study, an independent traffic study to be done in the area as well. And I believe that is getting close to being completed. The biggest issue of why this road needs to be widened, again, is at the intersections at both Wall Avenue and at Grant, particularly the right-hand turns. If you're going westbound at Grant, the through and the right-hand turn lane will need to be the same lane, and the potential that causes, if you get somebody trying to go right, they stop if there's pedestrian or bicycle traffic or school kids crossing the roadway, they have to sit there and hold. And then all the queue length just extends all the way back into Washington, and that was a concern. So by widening it out, we can have a center turn lane, we can have right-hand turn lanes at the intersections, and also continue to have on-street parking in those areas.
Justin, will you talk a little bit about, we're making a big effort on the Grant Promenade, which kind of intersects that street, and how the two will go together? And
yeah, with the Grant Avenue Promenade, so we're going to be introducing a lot of bicyclists, non-motorized vehicles and pedestrians in the area. And so because of that, we're also looking for the traffic study to be completed, even though we've done some preliminary looks at the intersection needing a traffic light, a warrant study. A few years ago, we believe with the increased growth that the new traffic study is going to warrant a traffic signal at that intersection. And because of that, by not increasing the width, what we're going to have is pedestrians and bicyclists going on the Grant Avenue Promenade, and that exact thing happening to where people are going westbound are wanting to turn north on Grant, and they're going to be stopped. And they're going to have to hold until the crosswalk clears, and then they can move. Because they are held, if we don't widen that to have a right-hand turn pocket, that is going to cause the queuing to go all the way back to Washington Boulevard.
so any thought of bike lanes on 20th Street?
We can look at that. One of the things that we have is we've been funded with through Wasatch Front and MAP 21 to get a bicycle master plan completed. We're going to we should be receiving that funding in October of this year, and so that'll be looked at that time.
Oh, that's great news. Okay.
Will the traffic study that will be completed, will it change the proposal that's in front of us today?
No, I actually believe that it will solidify what we're proposing. So that's why we're having an independent individual look at that. There is a problem. If we don't look to address this now, what will happen is we'll get curb and gutter and sidewalk placed, and then we'll have capacity issues. And instead of having, the developers are required to do those improvements now, but if we don't put them in the correct spot in the future, and it could be 3 to 5 years where we're having capacity issues, then we're going to be required to go back on our own dime and move those. And then we have buildings facing a certain way that are built, and that causes problems in itself. So we wanted to look at that before they were built and bring this issue up.
So continuing on with your capacity conversation, should you be looking at 2 lanes in each direction?
With what we're proposing, because right now we have on-street parking. However, that could be eliminated, and we could have 2 lanes. However, if we did that outside lane would then have to be looked at doing a through and a right combined. But we would still have a dedicated through at each intersection. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Do you know when the traffic study will be completed?
We're hoping to have it completed in the next few weeks. So they've been working on it, I think, the past month.
What's your opinion as to whether or not this should be approved before the traffic study is completed?
In meeting with the individual, it's Joe Perrin of A-Trans, who's doing the traffic study, and meeting and discussing the things with him, because he pretty much has all the counts. He's just now compiling all the information for the report. He agrees with what we've laid out. He said the only other way of fixing the situation is actually turning 20th and 21st Street back into one-way streets. So, and that's not something at this point I would recommend.
Okay.
So once that discussion took place with the developer in terms of requirements of taking the plan they had submitted and then moving the curb back, that stopped the developer for a moment to think about what is the best scenario for the project. I think one of the things that's important to understand of what's taking place is when we did the master plan, the concerns that Justin is talking about really weren't brought up at that point. So the master plan was laid out with the scenario of things are as they exist. And if you look at what 20th Street looks like at this point, there is no center lane, two-lane road, kind of a mixed match of curb or non-curb or sidewalk or what you could call sidewalk at one time existed. And as the development was taking place, they were looking at, okay, we can do park strips, we can have the typical transition spaces from public to private realm occur. Once that discussion took place, that the time to address the issues of the street is now before development takes place so that it doesn't impact things that are developed. The discussion was what is then best for the development along 20th Street. Now I throw this picture up to just give you a visual of what the change would be from the homes that have been built on Grand Avenue. Right now you've got a 5-foot park strip, a 10-foot sidewalk, and then a 5-foot another piece of public property before you get to the buildings. So imagine if you took this drawing and say, okay, now the curb is going to happen right here. So the curb would be there, then here's your sidewalk, and then there's your building. You would not have any of these trees here, and this would be 20th Street. So now, what does that do to these front doors of these homes in terms of marketability and of livability? So that became the developer's concern.
Well, and I think those trees are small now, but if
Oh, yeah,
you were
but
to
when these
have
trees
to
get big-
move them in, the tree canopy, depending on what type of tree they are, would be up against the building, I would assume, if you had.
Yeah, the intent here was that this tree, and then that we like I said, we have 5 feet here, that these two trees would then kind of create a shade canopy over the walkway. Well, you wouldn't be able to do any of these trees on 20th Street now. So there automatically that takes any shade off the sidewalk. You would just have curb, sidewalk, and then the front of the building. So the developer came and petitioned the city then to make an amendment of the MU zone to not require the buildings along 20th Street to front the street. So that is the specific ordinance that's being considered tonight. Revising the ordinance so that buildings in this location don't have to front 20th Street. They came back with this proposed revision, which would, and I'll just kind of, I don't know if I can overlay these two, just so you can go out a little bit. So you can kind of see the differences between the two. Focus too much. It just takes the time to correct. Okay. So what the proposed change is to take this road that serviced these units and put the road along 20th Street in this area. So these units are pushed back to be here. These units still stay the same along Grant Avenue. But then what happens is the units that were here, as you can see, they were facing along 20th, they're relocated to now face this green space. So we have a green walkway that goes all the way from here to the river. So instead of them being side to that green space, now they all face the green space, and they all come to close to, I think it's 10 feet from the right-of-way, but it's the side of the unit. And it's only one unit that then is impacted by that. So as you're heading west, what you'll see is these fronts of all these townhomes that face this green corridor space that's 30 feet wide that then leads to the river. That and this, as you see, are set in closer so that if you're traveling eastbound, you see the fronts of these units, and they hide these units until you get maybe past the intersection. The same here, these units hide what's happening here until you get to this point. So you've got maybe 180 feet of travel distance where you actually see these units when you're looking up and down the street. Because beyond that point, you see the fronts of these units, you see the fronts of these units. What this then allows to happen is a 7.5-foot walkway, then 6 to 8 foot landscape strip, 20 feet separation for the road, and then the units. Now, generally you say, okay, well, you're looking at the backs of the units. The backs of the units still have a lot of architectural relief to them. They're not just one bland style. They all have a variety of things, and they all have balconies that would still look out over the street. It still give people views in both directions. The question was made, well, then you still have these garage feelings there. This lower drawing was just trying to take an idea of, okay, give you a spatial relationship. If this were 20th Street here now becomes the landscape strip with the street trees and the shrubs to buffer. Here's the drive aisle and then the backs of the units. So as a pedestrian, these shrubs will keep you from a pedestrian level from looking at the back. You'll be looking at the upper parts of this. From the townhome units, these trees help buffer the street from the townhome because they're in level with the upper parts of the building. And then allows this tree to grow and to expand out over and not be impacting the building. The other thing it does, and I'll just show by this illustration, the space that then it creates. Again, for this section, this 3D model then gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. Again, how these buildings block the view of this as you're traveling eastbound. And you picture the same thing happening here as you're going westbound. But then it now creates this orientation to this green space, which again, this is the public thoroughfare walking space that goes up to the river. Now it creates, if you will, almost a little mini park here and here that pedestrians who may use this, because this is a public access, can now come across. Instead of going, and the other where is more sides of the buildings and that type of thing. So now there's a little courtyard space there. That's kind of one of those hidden gems you find as you start walking through this space. And then you have that repeated again as that solid 30-foot green space that will happen along this frontage that connects to the river. And so as the Planning Commission looked at this, they felt that the compromises that are taking place here are the best solution for what exists. And the reason I say that is, in our approval and the construction of this road is already in place. So there is no way to move anything from this line back and say, well, let's create more space this way, because this is all installed now. So you had a limited area that we try to work the best solution we could, given what changed, the ambiance you want to try to create. We had listed in the plan of what are our goals and objectives, but yet the reality of how marketable would those units become now that they have no buffer between the road. And so we felt this is the best solution, and it is limited only to this area because further to the west, we don't have any development built that has set constraints yet. We can now say, you got to take this into account and work with it. And so the recommendation from the Planning Commission is that this revision to the ordinance is appropriate, and they recommend unanimously for this ordinance amendment.
One of the big concerns that I had is if if there were garages and the children would come out, then they'd face garages on the other side. But since that's turned into a courtyard, I mean, that's a safe environment for kids to come in and out and play and not really be in the driveway space behind the house.
Yeah.
And Mr. Montgomery, I'd mentioned several concerns, but I think they've all been addressed appropriately. And I appreciate the foresight and the, explanation that's been given to me. I'm really happy to hear about, the possibility of a light there for the increased population with children that might be in this area, with the school that's there. I think that's very appropriate. And, so some of my safety concerns were addressed, and like Susie said, I really do like the addition of the green space for the family atmosphere. So, thank you, and even the buffer between the street and the road, but that at least gives us some space between future development. Thank you.
I think the plus for this proposal is that buffer area that you talked about, because under the first scenario, these homes were right out on 20th Street, as I understand your concept there. And so I think when we created that buffer zone, it kind of softens that area also in 20th Street area with that. But this project is so important to us, to not only to the neighborhood there, but also to our central part of the business district of Ogden. It's the key catalyst that's going to help us to bring individuals down to the city.
And I think one of the things you mentioned there I think is important, because when you look at this picture of what exists now, and imagine, again, there'd be no street trees here. Now the opportunity we have to have large trees that would still give that street tree appearance, that really changes the feel of the road. And I think that's something important to be able to accomplish.
I think it's also a blueprint by which we've done this on the north side of the street. We also can maybe do something very similar on the south side when that becomes developed in that aspect there.
Greg, I just had a couple questions. This is kind of the whole river project. The idea is pedestrian friendly. What is the formula to decide how wide the sidewalk is on 20th versus on Grant?
Well, Grant, we did a 10-foot sidewalk again because that continuity of the promenade idea. On 20th Street, presently you've got a 4-foot wide sidewalk. We're going to 7.5 feet. Again, trying to let the light fixtures and that create a visual buffer, if you will, between sidewalk and street. Even though it's a weak buffer, it still creates that line, but still allows enough room by being 7.5 feet to accommodate people to walk side by side. And that's the key thing about keeping it at 7.5 feet.
What are typical sidewalk widths?
Typical sidewalk widths are, for example, on Grant right now, without our construction work, they're 4 feet.
So 2 people can't walk side by side right now?
No.
So 10's a huge improvement, and 7.5
7.5 is still a decent width.
Biker can go by.
One more question. I realized that we had consultants that came in and created sort of the master plan pattern book, and I also understand you have a moving target that you're always trying to adapt to. Is there, do they have any connection anymore with, do you bounce ideas off of them, or are they just so long gone that?
No, we actually have a contract with them still to consult on the various phases. In fact, the architectural reviews still take place. On this one, we really didn't consult with them on this idea because there was no other option. It was either this or there's one or two things. And so what do we feel as the community is going to be the best scenario and the marketability of these units?
Justin talked about a study or a proposal of using a bike lane. Would this work on 20th Street also, or have we eliminated that possibility?
Well, those are the options, as Justin mentioned, that we can still take a look at in those cross sections of what can ultimately happen with that width. But the width gives you flexibility that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Okay. But
look at
that's
those
still
type
a
of things.
possibility then.
Those are things that I think Justin mentioned that could be looked at.
And maybe the master plan will help guide that. Did Justin have something you wanted to throw in on that?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I know the petitioner is here. If you have any other questions of me?
Thank you.
I think you've addressed, we want it to be walkable, and does having the front door out there necessarily equate to walkability? I don't know. This nice landscaping along the sidewalk, I think helps a lot toward making it feel more pedestrian friendly. And, we have a lot of neighborhoods with garage doors that are at the front, and that's what people see anyway. So, I don't know that it's a huge problem. And given that it's the only solution that we have, with the needed improvements on 20th Street, I don't know that there's really anything else that could possibly be done.
The plus side is that buffer area, because that can not only soften 20th Street, but also it can control the speed that's on that road also in the concept that we have here.
And I think you are kind of creating a buffer for the pedestrians from the big walls of the buildings by having that. It's not open space, it's a drive,
Yeah.
but it does give some setback from there, so you don't feel like you're walking right up against people's homes.
Thank you for taking the time and addressing our concerns. The petitioner is Blaine Walker, and if he's here, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. My name is Blaine Walker. I live at 24 Altawood Lane in Sandy. And first of all, just like to say thanks for the opportunity to develop the project. I hope all of you have had a chance to go through the units. Have you been there? And how many of you haven't? We've had really good reception. We're in the Parade of Homes, as you're probably aware, and we're getting 20 to 30 people a day through on the Parade of Homes. We have 10 to 12 a day when it's not the Parade of Homes. And people are staying around, and they really like the quality. So I have to say to my partner, Scott Sarek, the builder, that he's done a great job on building the townhomes. I think they're a credit to Ogden. Somebody asked me when we first started on this, would you live in one of these units? I actually own the model, and I would live in the model. If I were living in Ogden, it'd be a great place. It's close to the river, and what we did when we created this change, and maybe we can, that's much better. I didn't like looking at myself. Thank you. That was a bad picture. When we looked at this, number one, I never was comfortable with those units being pushed right up on 20th just because of the traffic and people coming out and trying to move around. With Grant, what's going to happen on Grant with that promenade, I think the people that buy on Grant are going to be more than pleased with the way that's going to look, with the road being narrowed, the wider strips even along the side. That works great. And so it's a nice walkable community. People can sit on their front porches, visit, and, kind of like what you wanted. With 20th being as busy as it was, I played with that and laid it out 2 or 3 different ways, and it just worked better to face them towards the green space, pull them back a little bit from the road, and that it was Greg kind of called it a road behind, but it's really just a driveway. That's the drive to come into the back of the units. And as you look at the back of the units, when Greg put them up there, they're not ugly units even from the back. That's what we like about them. Even from the back, you've got some dimension and so on, and different colors, and with the patios and the decks, I should say decks, we don't have any patios, but the decks that look out over the road or whatever and look at the temple. We've got a couple of people that want to be in there because they want a view of the LDS temple. So, we've had really good response. The people that go through the units, they like the construction, they like the walkable areas, they like the closeness to downtown. In answer to your question, Ms. Gochner, that sidewalk runs all the way up, and by turning these around, we got that nice green space between us and the credit union building. So it'll create a nice space there. So we've got that green space here, the green space to the north, and then the walkable areas. And we think that is still in keeping with what the intent was for the walkable area, but it creates a little nicer community where it's not pushed right against the road and they step out and get run over, so, especially with the widening. So we appreciate your consideration, and hopefully you're happy with what we're doing, and we'll continue to try to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping in our community. Just thank you for
Do you
being
have a
in-
question? I'm sorry.
No, but I think it's a real plus that the Parade of Homes is in downtown Ogden. I've
Thank
heard
you.
a lot of comments of people who said they just didn't even realize it was going on.
That-
So,
yeah.
what's happening down by the river. So that's a plus for us.
And we're really glad we're in the Parade of Homes, because what that's doing is it's introducing the area to people that might normally not have come downtown. I don't know how many of them are going to buy. It's pretty interesting because we've just started construction on 2 more. They're pre-sold. The next 3, we do have a person that's interested in possibly 2. And we've got, as a result of the Parade of Homes, 3 other people that are looking at some of the ones that we have totally constructed. So it's starting to pick up. So the faster we can get phase 2 approved, we'd like to start on it quite soon. That one unit that faces in to the north, that's the main floor living, we think that's going to be really a big hit. We've had a lot of people ask about main floor living that want to be close to downtown, but they're a little older and they don't like the 3 stories. So this provides an opportunity for them to live on the main level, but have a couple of bedrooms and a bath, and a family room upstairs for when family comes. So, and one of the units we're building right now, unit number 6, the people wanted 4 bedrooms in it. And we have the ability to put a 4-bedroom in the unit that's just like the model. So we built a 4th bedroom. I walked through it today, and it's pretty neat. It's pretty close to 2,000 feet, and you're just a little over 200,000. I don't know where you get 4 bedrooms for that type of a price anywhere else with that type of quality construction. So we're excited, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here.
The housing market is up about 19%, so it's good to see that there are potential buyers in that aspect there, and so
interest rates are starting to tick up a little bit, and that scares people. It's a funny thing: as interest rates go down, people wait to buy so they can get at the bottom. The minute they start coming up, then they want to hurry to get in before they get too high. So we're hoping that's a positive for us.
So how many units have you built, and how many have you sold?
We've built 10. And we have the other 5 that we're starting on, and we've sold 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 of them are sold. We have, is that right, Scott? We've got 3. Yeah, 3 and 3. We got 6 left. But we've got people working on offers on those, so, or at least on 3 of them. So we're excited to keep going along. We run out of product, and that's our biggest concern now. So
it's a good concern.
Yep.
It's not a bad one. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Montgomery, maybe. Going back to that drawing, it shows trees but no shrubs.
Right. When we get to the item in the RDA meeting, there'll be a drawing showing the shrubs
Okay.
in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He likes to keep you in suspense.
Okay, we will now receive input on the South River mixed-use zone text amendment.
Well, seeing no movement, I would recommend that we adopt proposed ordinance 2013-34.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-34 from Councilmember Heyer and a second from Councilmember Van Hoosier. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes. Next up is the financial guarantee and warranty requirement amendments. Mr. Montgomery.
Mr. Chairman and council members, this item is a cleanup item the Planning Commission looked at based on revisions that took place in state law this year. The legislature adopted a provision to try to uniform the way cities collect escrow accounts. And so the state law required that escrows be limited to 100%, as some cities such as Ogden and others would have 110%, 115% requirement. And the legislature said it's all going to be at 100%, and it will cover the work being done. Once that work is done, then you can have a 10% warranty, but it cannot be added up front, and it can't be based on things that you speculate may happen. It's based on the work that's there and what then needs to be warrantied. So our ordinance is trying to come in line with the state provisions of changing it from 110% to 100%. We also took a look at this point while we're doing this to revise the provision of bonds. We've had, since the financial crisis several years ago, had nothing but problems with bonds. And so this ordinance is now looking at eliminating bonds as one type of financial guarantee. So we still have three types of financial guarantees that are possible to set up an escrow, and that's a letter of credit, a third party holding the funds, or a cash escrow with the city. And we still feel those provide, those are the ways most people have used our financial guarantees in the past, and so we feel that's still appropriate. The other change, and there's actually two ordinances that are being changed. One is the zoning ordinance regarding financial guarantees. The other is the subdivision ordinance, which also has financial guarantees. It's bringing them both in line with that 100% requirement. In the subdivision part, one of the things that is added, though, is that in the release of escrows, and we do allow partial release of escrows as work is done, is that to release an escrow in a subdivision, you have to have, as we term it, a complete system created. So everything has to function that's being done. So if it's a storm sewer, we wouldn't just release the escrow for a portion of the pipe being put in. We'd say the entire storm system has to work, and then we'll release that portion of it. And so that complete system language was added to make sure that we get a functioning system when we release the escrow and partial releases. So that's what this provision is about. And again, the recommendation is approval of these changes.
Questions? Okay. We will also receive input on this proposed ordinance, the financial guarantee and warranty requirement amendments.
Seeing no action, I will go ahead and unless there's further discussion, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2013-35.
I second it.
We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-35 from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Van Hoosier.
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks.
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens. Vice Chair Garner.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Next up is new business. There is consideration of rescheduling the August 6, 2013 regular meeting.
Mr. Chair, that meeting was canceled previously. We thought there was a community event, which is not the case. So that one's being proposed to be rescheduled. And then we're also asking you to cancel September 17th regular meeting. That would be just a work session, a fact-finding work session related to the 32nd Street sidewalk project, be held in the community.
Okay.
There's no discussion. I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt those changes.
I'll second that.
Can we do those together?
Do them individually.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Then I will make a motion to reschedule the August 6th, 2013 meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Gochner to reschedule the regular meeting of August 6, 2013. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
I move that we schedule that we cancel the September 17th, 2013 meeting.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to cancel the regular meeting for September 17th, 2013 from Councilmember Van Hoosier and a second from Councilmember Wicks. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Next up, this is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. In this form of government, all city personnel are the responsibility of the administration, not of the council. Please discuss any concerns you may have regarding staff with the mayor, chief administrative officer, or department directors. Seeing no movement. Comments from administration?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
And council staff?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
And council members?
I would like to, as we go into the holiday season, just impress upon them the importance of being very safe, but enjoying the holidays and having fun. But most important is to be safe with the fireworks, and so that we can preserve our foothills. So I hope it's a safe holiday for us.
Next up is consideration of adjourning into a closed executive session pursuant to the provisions of Section 52-4-2051C of the Open and Public Meetings Law for the purpose of discussing pending and reasonably imminent litigation.
Mr. Chair, a closed executive session is permissible for the purposes set forth in the agenda.
With that, I would move that we move into a closed executive session for the reason outlined in the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion to adjourn into a closed executive session from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Councilmember Heyer. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye, that passes. We will adjourn here.
We'll adjourn here since you have a RDA meeting.
Okay, welcome back. We will now take a motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn the city council meeting from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Just as a reminder, a special redevelopment agency meeting will be held immediately following the city council meeting.